Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're plunging into a bit of a psychological mystery. It's slightly unsettling, actually. We're looking at why we humans absolutely crave transformation, yet biologically, we just resist it. You know, every single one of us says we want a better life, right? More success, more happiness, more freedom. But then, something really strange happens the second real change actually shows up. So we're going to unpack this invisible force that quietly dictates our lives, exploring those hidden behaviors and emotional traps that keep us stuck exactly where we are.
So why do we sabotage the exact change we actually desire? Think about it. When a massive new opportunity or a glimpse of a better future finally arrives, why is our very first instinct so often just to retreat? A relationship ends and we instantly cling to what's already gone. A better future is literally right there, entirely possible, and suddenly, the familiar past just feels so much safer. People don't usually wake up and say, hey, I'm choosing fear over growth today. No, we create explanations, justifications. We tell ourselves we just need a little more time, maybe some more preparation, more information. But why?
Well, it comes down to this really strange contradiction between what we consciously claim we want and the deep-rooted resistance that's actually driving the car. Consciously, we're all after more success, happiness, and freedom. But subconsciously, our actions trigger hesitation, clinging, and retreating. It's like we dream of becoming this entirely new person, but our minds are desperately, almost violently, fighting to stay exactly the same.
Part 1. The Ancient Survival Brain. To really grasp this internal conflict, we have to look way back at the brutal environments that originally wired the human mind.
You see, for the vast majority of human history, the unknown wasn't an exciting adventure. It held predators, it held poison. The unknown was deadly. Because of that, our ancestors' brains were hardwired to survive by clinging to familiar, recognizable patterns. This survival brain is essentially an evolutionary mindset that directly equates predictability with physical safety and uncertainty with literal death. Over thousands of years, safety became permanently glued to certainty.
Now, this ancient biology creates a massive, exhausting paradox for us today. In the ancient world, survival depended entirely on predictability. But in our modern world, growth requires continuous change. Careers evolve at lightning speed. Technology flips entire industries upside down overnight. And yet, we're demanding this continuous, exhausting reinvention from a brain that, at its core, just wants everything to stay exactly the same.
This is exactly why people frequently stay in miserable jobs or toxic relationships, is because the predictability of that misery actually feels emotionally safer than the anxiety of not knowing what comes next. From the outside, sure, staying looks completely irrational, but psychologically, it makes perfect sense. The familiar creates predictability, and predictability gives us a sense of emotional stability, even if the situation itself is literally making us miserable. The anxiety of uncertainty feels like an actual physical danger to your survival brain.
Part 2. The Identity Prison. Now we're shifting into an even deeper, more subtle psychological barrier. Because it's not just about physical survival anymore. It's about how change directly threatens the very stories we tell about ourselves. We don't just live our lives. We construct these elaborate narratives about who we are.
And these internal stories act like incredibly heavy psychological anchors. They turn our comfortable identities into invisible prisons. Someone might label themselves as the shy one, the responsible one, the victim, the broken one, or even the highly successful one. And those labels, they create a powerful sense of stability. But major change threatens to completely shatter them. Imagine a chronic people pleaser finally learning to set boundaries. They have to stop seeing themselves through that comfortable, familiar lens. They aren't just protecting a comfort zone at that point. They are literally protecting their identity.
Because changing a fundamental behavior means you actually have to abandon an old version of yourself. And that prompts this really silent, haunting question. If I become someone completely different, well, who am I then? That right there is where our emotional resistance totally spikes. Changing a habit is hard enough, sure, but letting go of who you thought you were, that feels like losing a piece of your actual soul. The brain just totally panics at the thought of that empty void.
Part 3. The Comfort Zone Illusion. Let's talk about a concept that sounds so peaceful, almost aspirational, but is actually deeply psychologically misleading. We hear about it all the time, but we rarely realize what it's really doing to us.
Here is the truth. A comfort zone doesn't actually offer true comfort. It just offers predictability. The real results of staying in one? A much smaller world, shrinking opportunities, slowed growth, fading curiosity, and disappearing possibilities. The irony is, so many people feel intensely anxious, isolated, or just deeply dissatisfied inside their so-called comfort zones. But they stay. They stay because that repetitive cycle is predictable. And over time, that predictability silently suffocates your potential.
Part 4. The hidden cost. This brings us to the invisible consequences of constantly prioritizing certainty. These are the costs that quietly accumulate in the shadows, right while we're patting ourselves on the back for staying safe. Most of us hyper-focus on the immediate risks of making a change, but almost no one focuses on the devastating long-term risks of staying exactly the same.
Just look at the creeping cost of avoidance. It's a chilling reality, honestly. Dodging discomfort today leads to these massive, invisible costs that only reveal themselves, rather brutally, decades later. In year 1, maybe it's just a delayed, difficult conversation. No big deal, right? But by year 5, it's a fully postponed dream. And by year 10, you wake up and realize life just moved forward anyway, without your permission, without waiting for you to be ready, and definitely without any guarantees. The greatest cost of avoiding change is that it is completely invisible in the present moment.
So many of us spend years, decades even, believing we're just afraid to fail. But here's the thing. Failure is an outcome the human mind can actually visualize. You can brace for it. You can literally picture losing a job, or a relationship ending, or a business going under. You can prepare for failure. Because it has a shape, your brain can process it.
Uncertainty, on the other hand, cannot be imagined. The true terror lies in that void, because the absolute, total unknown is what our ancient survival psychology fears above everything else. Uncertainty has no shape, it's just a blank space, and to the primal parts of your brain, a blank space represents a lethal, hiding threat. That right there is the real reason we sabotage the very opportunities we genuinely desire.
Part 5. Embracing the unknown. So, how do we actually deconstruct this trap? How do we override thousands and thousands of years of hardwired evolutionary programming? We have to realize that growth feels like loss because we have to endure this dark psychological transition first. First, the old self dissolves, and that leads right into phase 2, deep psychological confusion. Now, a lot of people interpret this profound discomfort as a sign they made the wrong choice, right? Like, oh no, I made a mistake. But actually, it's the exact opposite. It's evidence that genuine transformation is underway, and that confusion leads right into phase 3, where the new version of you finally emerges. Growth rarely feels good while it's happening. It mostly just looks comfortable in retrospect.
Certainty is largely an illusion. Life changes regardless of personal preference. The most resilient people out there aren't fearless, not at all. They've just realized that complete certainty is a total myth, and they make the choice to move forward despite that natural, terrifying fear. Relationships change, economies shift, people evolve. The future is going to remain uncertain whether you resist it or not. The people who actually progress aren't magically immune to the fear of the unknown. They've simply changed their relationship to it.
Which brings us to a massive paradigm shift. Avoiding change doesn't give you control. It honestly just guarantees stagnation. Waiting for complete certainty often means waiting forever. We spend enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to entirely eliminate uncertainty before we make a move, as if feeling completely safe is a strict requirement for growth. But waiting for total safety just means you'll be waiting indefinitely, quietly sitting there while the world just passes you by. Think about this for a second. What would your future self think about the decisions you are avoiding today? Imagine actually meeting the version of yourself 10 years from now, a version created by choosing growth instead of fear. What would they think about those hard conversations and risks you're putting off right now? They'd probably tell you that every single meaningful chapter of their life, every great relationship, every career leap, every real achievement started with something completely, terrifyingly unknown. Because every meaningful transformation begins exactly where certainty ends. At the end of life, people's deepest regrets almost always stem from the opportunities they avoided. It proves that growth and uncertainty are and always have been inseparable companions. Nobody looks back and wonders what might have happened if they had just stayed a little more comfortable. They wonder what magic might have unfolded if they had just been willing to step into the dark before they felt perfectly ready. So I'll leave you with this. If uncertainty makes us so instinctively fear change, why do we become so deeply emotionally attached to these invisible prisons in the first place? In our next explainer, we're going to dive right into the hidden psychology of attachment. We'll explore why letting go actually feels like losing a piece of yourself. But until then, remember, the future belongs to those who are willing to walk into the dark.